The movie starts in 1942 when a group of soldiers arrive on a small boat to a larger ship out at sea. On that ship, there are two guys named Gus and Anders. The general asks them, "What are you doing here?" Gus responds, "We're just here to relax, it's a holiday." The general checks their passports, and then tells them to put their hands up. Gus starts laughing loudly, which annoys the general. He orders a thorough search, but they find nothing. The general then pours oil on the ship, claiming it as their territory and saying Gus and Anders shouldn't be there. Meanwhile, a soldier goes below deck to talk, and a guy named Henry starts shooting at him. On the deck, Anders kills the general. Then, Gus and Anders team up with Henry and take out all the soldiers. They greet the general's ship, and another friend named Freddy joins them. They get attacked by the bigger ship, and Freddy comments that they won't survive. The ship blows up, with a bomb Freddy planted. Then we flash back to 25 days earlier, where we see a general briefing about a World War II battle happening in Nazi-occupied areas. The Nazis had taken over a lot of British territory using their new submarines, and caused a lot of damage. Winston says they cut off our supply through their U-boats. I need men to go and sink those ships. And he assigns the mission to them. He starts to plan with Marjorie and Mr. Heron. Then they called an officer Gus. He asked, "Why'd you call me here?" M replied, "We're putting together a team for this operation. You're going to take some people with you on this op." The situation was that the German army took over one of their areas and had two of their best ships. Your job was to go in and destroy those ships. Mr. Heron and Marjorie are also part of this op. Heron will find out if the ships are loaded and worth sinking and let you know. So all you had to do was go there and sink those ships. Gus says he will pick his own team, and M tells his officer to write the names down. He picked Henry first, who was great at sailing boats and could also fight well. Next, he chose Freddy, who was a bomb-making expert. Next was Anders, a brave soldier who hated Nazis and was really tough. Finally, they picked Jeffrey Appleyard, which we will refer to as Apple. An officer mentions that the Nazis had captured Apple. Gus says that he had worked with him, and that he was incredibly brave and honest. We need him, so we will break him out of there. The story continues in the present with Gus telling his team that this is an unofficial mission. They need to go rescue Apple, who had found out about the ship but was captured by the Nazis. While traveling, Heron and Marjorie order food. Heron noticed a German soldier put his bag down, so Marjorie goes and places a bigger bag on top and swipes the smaller one. Heron comes and helps her with her bag and they go to a nearby room. Marjorie entered the pin to open a box. Heron sent all the details to the other side and passing it to M. Then they put the map back and enjoy their meal. Gus and his team arrives at the island. They all climbed up from the mountain to a square base. Anders pulls out his bow and starts taking out enemies. The whole team pushed forward, taking out every soldier until the place was filled with bodies. They found Apple, who had been tortured. They free him, and after that, they blew up the base and got out of there. Marjorie and Heron were headed to keep an eye on the ships. The highest ranking officer, Heinrich Löhr, whom we will call H, was there handling the ships. Marjorie and Heron met up with him and start flattering H. Meanwhile, Gus explained his plan to the team. They had to take a long route to get to the ships, and it would take the whole team 15 days to get there. At a party, H meets Marjorie again. They talk and H starts trusting her. Heron finds out that the ships are leaving earlier, so he sends the information to their base, which M would receive and send to Gus and his team. The team then quickly moved their ship in the same direction. One day, a Navy boat pulled up next to their ship. The general said the area was a war zone, but the Gus explained they had accidentally ended up there and were ready to leave. That's when they noticed a submarine nearby and realized it belonged to the enemy. So they ditched the Gus's ship and went after the sub instead, while Gus continued on their mission. Heron and Marjorie went to meet an African prince who we will refer to as Billy, who was Heron's friend and also against the Nazis. Billy had a lot of weapons, men, and ships. They tell him their plan to sink the ship and he agrees to help them. Heron and Marjorie send the information about the ships and their defenses to Gus. Heron brought Billy along to meet the team. It turns out Gus recognized Billy as a former cricketer and was a huge fan. Billy was excited about that, and they became buddies. Apple said they would wreck the enemy ships but worried that only bringing a handful of people wouldn't be enough. Billy just laughed because he had about 30 or 40 men ready to roll on his ship, all armed and ready for battle. The plan was that Heron will throw two parties, one for the officers and another for the solders, to have minimum people guarding the ships and also plant bombs to distract the officers from catching them afterwards. Heron goes to an office to plant the bomb and hit it. Some soldiers caught him, and he killed them all right there. After that, Marjorie came and dressed as Cleopatra, telling H to dress up as well because it was a costume party. At night, Heron was at the party and saw H and Marjorie there. Marjorie finds out that they have upgraded the ship and explosives won't sink it now. She tells Heron to stop Gus and his team. Heron passes the information along. Now Gus and his team plan to steal those ships and take them away, and Winston was informed about it. They tweaked the plan a bit and were ready to steal the ships. They knew the mission was risky and everyone was worried. While Marjorie was entertaining everyone by singing, Gus and his crew split up and started taking out officers. Some soldiers jumped onto the ship and started fighting everyone. H realized that Marjorie was Jewish from her accent during the song, so he told his guy to grab her after the party. Gus and his team attacked the boats, killing all the soldiers there, and Anders planted bomb on the anchor of the ship. And once they were done outside, the whole team met up. Soldiers opened fire toward the ship, and Gus's team fired back, leading to a shootout on the beach. H was furious, and his guys suspected someone leaked information from inside. H was angry and shot those guys. They brought in Marjorie to deal with her, and H accused her of everything. Marjorie pulls out her gun and shots H on the spot. Then Heron comes and kills H's driver and drives off with Marjorie. Meanwhile, Gus had moved away from the side, and Billy says that they need to leave. Gus told them to wait for Heron and Marjorie. A boat approached them, and Billy thought they were enemies, but Heron signaled them, and they came aboard the ship. After that, the crew took both ships and sailed ahead. They contacted a nearby Navy boats and told them about the situation. The Navy crew took control of the two ships with everyone on board and sailed. They met a captain who was on an official mission, and he told them to turn themselves in. Gus handed over his whole crew to the authorities. Then, he said goodbye to his Billy, and they left. Winston read about it in the news. A month later, Winston met with the whole team, praised them and treats them well, lets them go free, and says from now on they work for me.